Today, we're diving into an absolutely extraordinary text called The Lantern of the Wise by Dr. Hassan al-Din Baha al-Zawawi. And, calling this thing a book just doesn't feel right. It's really more like a proposal for a radical kind of journey, a complete reforging of the modern mind.
I mean, just think about our lives, right? We're so fragmented, pulled in 1,000 different directions every single hour. Dr. al-Zawawi argues that this constant turbulence is disconnecting us from our source, that we're living in a state of what he calls a spiritual malaise. Basically, we're asleep at the wheel of our own lives.
So, how in the world do we wake up? Well, the book presents itself as a solution, but not just as words on a page, but as a vessel. Its whole purpose is to reforge our thought machinery, to create a tool that can actually carry us through the chaos of modern life and help us build a totally new kind of inner loyalty.
And that brings us to the book's core idea, psychological fidelity. Think about how most of us live. If something good happens, we're happy. If something bad happens, we're miserable. We're essentially just emotional mirrors, right? We reflect whatever the world puts in front of us. Psychological fidelity is all about taking that power back.
Exactly. You stop outsourcing your internal state to what's happening outside. Your loyalty stays with your inner journey, your connection to your origin, whether you're walking through a storm or a sunny day. You stop being a reflection, and you start becoming the lantern.
So that's the goal, but how do you actually build this lantern? Well, the method Dr. al-Zawawi uses is where this whole thing gets truly fascinating. It's this wild synthesis of the ancient and the ultramodern.
The way this book is built is pretty unique. Dr. al-Zawawi isn't asking AI to just create wisdom out of thin air. No, the wisdom is the ancient seed. He uses AI more like a superpowered loom, sifting through centuries of scattered, fragmented texts, finding patterns and hidden structures that a human could easily miss. It takes the really dense, paradoxical insights of a 10th century mystic and weaves them into something coherent we can finally understand.
So, who was the source of this ancient seed? A man named Muhammad ibn Abdul Jabbar al-Nafri. And he was a pretty enigmatic figure. Lived during the Abbasid era, was always traveling. But here's the real paradox. He was a mystic who specifically chose not to write his ideas down. He believed that the second you cage a spiritual truth in words, you kind of kill its living essence.
This famous saying from al-Nafri just perfectly captures his whole philosophy. It's like when you see a breathtaking sunset. The reality is this massive explosion of color and feeling, but the photo you take on your phone just looks flat. He argued language is kind of like that. It's a low-resolution photo of a high-resolution reality.
But, and this is a really big but, this journey isn't just a simple path to happiness. The book gives a pretty critical warning. The path to this kind of wisdom has a cost. It's not without its perils.
And this is the central paradox the book really forces you to grapple with. Does this deeper understanding actually free your mind, or does it kind of condemn you to a lonely existence on the fringes of society? And the answer, well, it's complicated. The journey inevitably creates a kind of chasm between you and the conventional world. Think about the classic archetypes, right? Odysseus's journey changed him so much he was basically a stranger in his own home. The Buddha's enlightenment created this huge gulf between him and a world still caught up in everyday desires. You start to see through the illusions that everyone else is still reacting to.
So, here's the crucial point. The book argues this isolation isn't a punishment. It's actually a necessary process of purification to become what the text calls a khalifa, which is basically a clear channel for truth. You have to detach from all the societal noise. I mean, you can't hear the signal if you're constantly tuned into the static, right? Okay, so if you're willing to accept that cost and actually take on this odyssey, you're going to need a map. And thankfully, the book provides one. It lays out this incredibly structured path toward that ultimate transcendence.
The journey is laid out across 5 distinct stations. It starts with the dawn of belief, that first shock when you realize there's a reality beyond just the physical world. Then you move to the pathway to divine connection, which is built on humility. The third station, the crucible of inner transformation, well, that's where the real work begins, where the false, reactive self is painstakingly burned away. That leads to the triumph of self-mastery over your own base desires. And finally, it all culminates in the zenith of liberation, a state of total inner freedom.
And it's so important to see these not as chapters in some textbook, but as truly transformative stages. They're like sacred gateways, and each one is designed to systematically dismantle the illusions that hold us all back. and to purify our perception of what's real.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and it brings you, personally, to a kind of threshold. We've laid out the map, we've shown you the tools, and we've talked about the cost. The choice now is yours.
This just says it all. A lantern is completely useless if you stay under the bright artificial lights of what society expects. It's a tool for people willing to venture out into the unknown. Dr. Al-Zawawi's book can be your lantern, but it can't walk the path for you.
So we'll leave you with this. We've seen that this path of wisdom, well, it can separate you from the comfort of the crowd. The question, then, is pretty simple. Are you brave enough to walk into the solitude of the unseen? Only you can answer that.